Hey everybody, it's Carm here. I'm coming to you on a Sunday afternoon. I wanted to come on and share and go a little more in depth into one of the records I'd picked up with Chris a couple weeks back. The Saturday we got together in his neighborhood and went by Record Wonderland, the shop that he volunteers at sometimes, and later on, gave me that incredible stack of free records he'd received, and I'm still kind of going through them little by little, slowly. A lot of nice stuff there, but wanted to share one of the albums that was a particular standout. This is one I actually picked up at the shop, which this had actually been in Chris's collection at one time, and he liked it and he recommended it, but he found he hadn't listened to it very much, so that's why I didn't keep it. But I definitely had. When I was flipping through and he saw me pulling it out, he's like, that'd be one to go for. And I know several people had commented on how intriguing this looked, and for very good reason. According, composed by Gail Young, and also joined by Reinhard Reisenstein. Came out in 1980, and there's just 3 pieces on this album. According to the Moon, which takes up the whole of the first side, and second side has In Motion in Theorin. Just amazing stuff, and I wanted to really set aside the time to give it a good concentrated listening, because I knew it wasn't going to be like a mere background type thing. You needed to devote yourself a little more to it, and just love for the cover alone, it's really really worth looking further into. And it was explaining here how the first piece was constructed somewhat, although a little hard to understand if you're not really, technically schooled. But it's for 2 voices, Billy Bridgman on soprano, and Karen Skidmore on alto. The closest comparison I could make from just what I've heard over the years as far as vocal music, and this is really the kind of vocal music that draws me in the most personally, which doesn't have lyrics and where the voices are really used as instruments in and of themselves. Maybe Ligeti, like Lux Eterna, or Atmosphere. I always get those pieces confused. But from 2001: A Space Odyssey, where you just have these incredible voices. I think it's the Stargate sequence that it's going through. This would be the closest comparison as far as style and approach. Sometimes it almost sounds like harmonic singing, although it doesn't quite go that far into that actual technique. It sounds like they're like almost like a preamble to it, but it goes on for over 20 minutes. There's no real. When you think of like a vocal duet, you would think of maybe a lead vocal, lead melody, and a harmony vocal, and maybe they would switch off or alternate at different times. This really sounds like 2 harmony vocals, kind of going at the same times, just sort of going further, not like a race, but they're kind of parallel the whole time. But neither voice is really dominating, and he was even explaining that it's the way it was constructed was to echo the changing phases of the moon, cyclical structures, and how the voices are how they were arranged, and it literally does sound like music of the Dark Side of the Moon. Not the Pink Floyd, but the actual phenomenon. And these are pictures of an art installation, which again, this would be really neat to hear a piece performed in this room. It'd be a neat space to behold. There's the moon itself. It's just an incredible piece. I hadn't really heard voices, a duo like that. Just sparse, but also very. It's almost like there's a lot of layers going on there. It sounds like one of the voices at times might be blended or overdubbed, to sound like 2, like the soprano voice. But again, the line between leading and accompanying is pretty much blurred on this. It's like they're both kind of accompanying simultaneously. Tree in the water. But very, very beautiful, but not pretty sounding. It's a different kind of beauty, kind of a stark, spacious, or you could say like spacelessness or formless kind of beauty. And the next piece, starting side 2, is called In Motion, and it's performed by Gail Young herself on an instrument called the Columbine, which I had not heard of before. And, actually, it's pictured back here. Just describing it as an instrument, a percussion instrument with 61 tuned steel tubes and a range just under 3 octaves. Let's see how well that'll show up there. Really hard to describe the actual tone and timbre if you haven't heard it. It's not quite like a vibraphone, maybe somewhat like a glockenspiel or a celeste, and at times almost like a gamelan, but still different. You can tell it's not any one of those instruments. And the piece starts off, very sparsely, kind of going between higher and lower notes. Just to me, it almost sounds like the pattern of raindrops, kind of like an irregular rhythm and pattern to it, and increasingly gets more and more dense until it's just like a flurry of notes. Again, almost sound like increasing raindrops, and then it sounds like they're sliding across the tubes, giving this kind of almost like when you're going down a piano, kind of rolling down the keys. That has that feel to it, but it's unlike any instrument I think I've ever heard. Just not a typical sort of mallet percussion instrument, or I'm not even sure what they're playing it with. I'm assuming it's mallets, or maybe even some kind of hammer, or maybe what you would use on like a hammer dulcimer. But just an incredible sound. And the third piece, Theremin, is a duo for Gail Young again on Columbine and Reinhard Reisenstein on voice. It starts off with, it sounds like it's being processed, the Columbine, to where it's not quite a drone, but almost like it's being looped, so it's more of like an extended. It really sounds like the instrument is being bowed, which it's possible that it is. You hear that sometimes, like on a vibraphone. Sometimes they'll actually bow the metal pieces, the keys, give it that sustained sound, and it does have that. It's again very ethereal and very has this kind of ambiguity to it, which is really I find it really appealing. And then at some point his voice comes in, reciting text, but it sounds like it's being sort of chopped up and I don't know, reconstituted maybe. It reminds me a little bit of what John Cage was doing with some of his readings, like reading from Silence or one of his own texts, where his voice comes in about halfway through the piece. And I don't know, it's interesting, but if it hadn't been there, I wouldn't have minded. It would have been nice just hearing the sustained sound of the Columbine. But again, it was an introduction to a style of singing that I hadn't heard a great deal of before, as well as that instrument and the approach to it. A few more pictures here. I don't know why at first glance this kind of reminds me of John Sermon's early solo album, Upon Reflection. I don't know, at least it looks like that from this angle, looking at the camera screen. But, and that's, of course, that's another story in and of itself, his music. But I'd recommend, I didn't check to see if this is on YouTube at all, but I'm assuming it's somewhere where you could easily sample it. I really like this. Looks to be like a bronze sculpture. But I would definitely recommend sampling this for, kind of an alternate approach to these sounds. And yeah, just really beautiful, evocative stuff. And definitely music for the other side of the moon. And again, out of all these pieces I've heard so far that I picked up that day or received, this is one that it stood out to me so much. I felt I had to give it its own video. I've been playing it quite a bit lately, kind of mixing it in with everything else. But, yeah, it's one of those pieces, and it stands the test of time, I think. So I'll have to look into more of her work in general. So yeah, Courting by Gail Young. Yeah, just something quite different, and again, was happy to find it. And again, as always, Chris, he points many of us towards the gems, many of which are obscurities, and even though he was saying that he was going to kind of just let me, he's like, I'll just let you do your thing, and I won't. But every now and then, I know he couldn't help it with this one. And as always, I'm thankful for when he points the way. So, yeah, just wanted to share that, and yeah, I'll see whatever comes next as I've been listening to this these couple of stacks. I think I have them kind of mixed in now, so I probably won't even remember exactly what what I received as a gift and what I picked up. But as they come along and I find out more to talk about of interest, I'll be back. So hope we're all doing well, and until next time, peace, love, and joy.